My dad called my wife a gold digger at our wedding. Then years later, when my brother got divorced, Dad asked me for $2,000. But when I reminded him what he said about my wife, he went silent, throwaway. Because some people involved use Reddit, and I've been lurking here forever, but never posted. I'm male, 35, met a woman my father doesn't approve of, and it's changing how I see my entire family. So, some background about me, I guess. I come from what I'd call a solidly middle-class family. My dad, Walter, male 68, started a construction business like 40 years ago and worked his way up from nothing, which is basically his entire personality at this point. My mom, Helen, female 65, is nice, but she basically just goes along with whatever my dad wants to keep the peace. And then there's my younger brother, Jared, male 32, who's always been the favorite because he's exactly what my dad wanted in a son. Growing up, it was always assumed that me and Jared would both join the family business. My dad would take us to construction sites when we were kids and talk about someday we'd be running the company together. Problem was, I hated it, hated it. Construction just wasn't my thing at all, but my dad refused to hear it. Anytime I'd bring up wanting to do something else, he'd shut it down immediately. Anyway, I ended up going to college for computer science, which my dad called a fad, lol, and now I work as a software developer. When I told my dad I was taking a job at a tech company instead of joining the family business, he didn't speak to me for like 3 months. My mom would call me and say, "He'll come around," but she never actually stood up for me. Meanwhile, Jared went straight into the business after college and has been the perfect son ever since. The real story is about me meeting Emma, female, 33, about 7 years ago. I was getting coffee near my apartment and Emma was the barista. She messed up my order and was super apologetic. We started talking while she fixed my order and I found out she was working there while finishing her education degree. I asked her out that day and we ended up going on a date that weekend. We just clicked in a way I've never experienced with anyone else. She's smart and funny and caring and just real. My family has always been big on appearances and status. My dad especially is obsessed with connections and networking. Emma's family is working class. Her dad's a mechanic and her mom works at a grocery store. They're great people, but definitely not the kind of connections my father values. The first time Emma met my family was at a dinner at my parents' house about 6 months after we started dating. My dad made comments all night that seemed innocent, but were actually super condescending. He asked about her career aspirations, in a tone that made it clear he didn't consider teaching a real career. He kept saying how brave it was to choose a job that doesn't pay much. Emma handled it all so gracefully, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. After dinner, my dad pulled me aside and told me Emma seemed nice, but questioned if I should be looking for someone more suitable, with better connections who understands our world. I was furious. My hands were literally shaking. I told him Emma was exactly who I wanted to be with, and his opinion didn't matter. He got all cold and said I'd understand when I had more life experience. That was pretty much the pattern for the next year. Emma would try so hard with my family, especially my mom, who was polite but distant. My dad would make backhanded comments about how refreshing it was to meet someone so unpolished, or how sweet it was that she wanted to teach children. Meanwhile, he loved Jared's girlfriends, who were always from good families with proper backgrounds. The worst part is, my mom and Jared never stood up for Emma. My mom would just change the subject whenever my dad said something offensive, and Jared would sometimes even join in with his own subtle digs. It made me see my family differently. Were they always this snobby? And I just never noticed, because I was part of the bubble. My dad's disapproval only got worse when things between me and Emma got more serious. When we moved in together after a year of dating, my dad lectured me about rushing into things and limiting my options. When I told him I was thinking about proposing, he tried to talk me out of it, saying I was making a mistake because she's not from our world. I proposed anyway. Emma said yes, obviously, and my dad basically just said he hopes I know what I'm doing. My mom just went along with it as usual. Only Jared congratulated me. But even that felt kind of hollow because he followed it up with saying, "Dad will come around eventually," like I needed Dad's approval. I honestly don't know if I'm looking for advice or just venting. Emma is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I know I want to spend my life with her. But it hurts that my family can't see past their own prejudices to recognize how amazing she is. My dad acts like I'm throwing my life away by not marrying someone from a good family with connections. Am I crazy for being so upset about this? Has anyone dealt with family disapproval like this? Does it ever get better? Edit. Wow, I wasn't expecting so many responses. Thanks to everyone who shared their own experiences with disapproving families. Edit 2. To clarify something a lot of people are asking, no, my dad has never been this openly disapproving of any other life choice I've made except not joining the family business. Even when I chose a tech career instead of construction, he was mad, but he eventually kind of accepted it. His issue with Emma seems to be purely about her background and lack of connections. Edit 3. Someone asked about my mom's relationship with my dad. They've been married for like 40 years, and my mom has basically spent that entire time keeping the peace. She's never really stood up to him about anything important that I can remember. Edit 4. A few people have asked if Emma knows how my dad feels. Unfortunately, yes. He's not exactly subtle with his disapproval. She tries to brush it off and says it doesn't bother her, but I can tell it does. She still makes an effort with my family every time we see them, which honestly makes me love her even more. Edit 5. To the people suggesting I cut off my family, it's complicated. Despite everything, they're still my family, and I do love them. I'm hoping they'll eventually see how happy Emma makes me and come around. Maybe I'm being naive, though. Now for the first update. So it's been 5 years since I last posted here. A lot of you asked for an update way back when, and I've been meaning to post one for literally years, but life just gets so busy, you know. Anyway, I finally have a reason to actually write this all out. First, thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. I read every single comment, even though I didn't respond to most of them. To all the people who said I should prioritize Emma over my family's approval, you were absolutely right. And to the person who said my dad would never change but might eventually behave better, spot on. Quick recap for anyone who doesn't remember my first post. I met Emma, who comes from a working-class family. My dad, Walter, basically thought she wasn't good enough for me because she didn't have the right connections, made a huge scene at our wedding, while my brother Jared married someone my dad approved of. So anyway, Emma and I have been married for almost 5 years now. We live in a pretty modest 3-bedroom house in a good school district. We could afford something bigger, but Emma is super practical about money. She's always worried about saving for our daughter's college and preparing for economic downturns. Oh yeah, I should probably mention we have a daughter now. Kara is 3, and she's literally the most amazing kid ever. She looks just like Emma, but unfortunately got my stubbornness lol. My mom is obsessed with her even though she only sees her like once every couple months. Speaking of my mom, she's been texting me like constantly lately. Just random stuff like, how's my granddaughter, and saw this article about coding, thought of you, but never mentions my dad directly. It's weird. Emma's still teaching 2nd grade at the same elementary school. Anyway, the real reason I'm posting is about my brother Jared. So after I got engaged to Emma, Jared started dating Rebecca, who was basically my dad's dream daughter-in-law. Her family owns like 3 car dealerships and some commercial real estate. They got married about 6 months after Emma and I did. My dad made this big speech at their wedding about how perfect they were together and how they understood the importance of building the right connections. He even said something about how some people don't understand how important it is to marry strategically while looking right at me and Emma. Emma just squeezed my hand under the table, and we laughed about it later, but it still hurt. At our wedding, my dad got drunk and during his speech started talking about how he always imagined a different kind of wedding for me and hoped I knew what I was giving up. My mom actually tried to get him to sit down, which was shocking because she never stands up to him. We ended up cutting the reception short. He sent a generic apology text the next day, but never actually admitted he was wrong. So anyway, Jared and Rebecca seemed like the perfect couple according to my dad. They bought this massive house in the fancy part of town, went on expensive vacations. Rebecca was always dressed in designer clothes, etc. My dad would not shut up about them at family gatherings. He was constantly bragging about their vacations or business connections while barely asking about our lives. I always thought Jared seemed stressed all the time and would drink a lot at family functions. I figured he was unhappy being forced into this perfect mold. Well, turns out I was totally wrong about why he was stressed. Found out about 7 months ago that Jared had been having an affair with the office manager at the family construction company for like 2 years. Rebecca caught him because he was stupid enough to use their joint credit card at a hotel like 20 minutes from their house. She filed for divorce immediately. Here's where it gets crazy though. Apparently Rebecca's family had been heavily investing in my dad's construction business for years. Like, they provided the capital for his last 3 major projects. I had no idea their families were so financially intertwined. When the affair came out, Rebecca's family pulled all their investments immediately. And now my dad's business is in serious trouble. Like, might not survive trouble. Jared called me last week and was acting all weird. He kept saying stuff like, family has to stick together and we need to support Dad right now. I was confused until he finally admitted that Dad wants to talk business with me. I was like, because my dad has never wanted to talk business with me since I refused to join the family company. But apparently he wants to meet up next week to discuss a proposition. Jared wouldn't tell me exactly what it was about, but hinted that Dad needs money and is hoping I can help out the family. The thing is, Emma and I do have pretty good savings. We're not rich or anything, but we're comfortable and have a decent emergency fund. But the idea of giving money to my dad after how he's treated Emma all these years makes me feel sick. Especially if it's to bail him out of a situation that's basically Jared's fault. Emma is pregnant again, and we're saving for a bigger house. Plus, Kara will start preschool next year, which isn't cheap. I just don't know what to do. Part of me feels like I should help because he's still my dad, but another part feels like this is karma for how he's acted. I told Emma about the call, and she just said, "It's your decision. I'll support whatever you think is right." Which honestly made me feel even worse because she's being so understanding despite how my dad has treated her. I agreed to meet with my dad next week, but I haven't decided what to do yet. Am I wrong for even considering saying no? Has anyone dealt with something like this before? Edit. To answer some common questions, no, I don't know exactly how much money my dad needs. Jared was super vague about it, which makes me think it's a lot. Edit 2. For those asking about Jared and whether he's contributing, no idea. He's still working at the family business, but I don't know if he's putting any of his own money in to help. Knowing Jared, probably not. Edit 3. Someone asked if my mom has said anything about the business troubles. Nope, not directly. But that explains why she's been texting me so much lately. She's probably trying to warm me up before Dad asks for money. Edit 4. A few people are suggesting my dad might ask me to join the family business instead of asking for money. Honestly, hadn't considered that, but it makes sense. Would be a hard no from me though. I love my job and I'm good at it. Plus the thought of working with my dad and Jared every day. Yikes. Edit 5. To the person who asked if I ever told my dad off about how he treated Emma, kind of. After the wedding incident, I told him his behavior was unacceptable and we didn't see him for about 3 months. But then Kara was born and Emma actually encouraged me to let him meet his granddaughter. Edit 6. I know I probably sound bitter about Jared, and maybe I am a little, but he's still my brother. I just wish he'd grow up and take responsibility for once, instead of expecting Dad, and now maybe me, to clean up his messes. Now for the second update. So I met with my dad yesterday. I've been putting off writing this update because honestly I'm still processing everything that happened. After my last post, Emma and I had like 4 or 5 long conversations about what to do about my dad's money request. She kept saying she'd support whatever I decided, which honestly made the whole thing harder because I kind of wanted her to just tell me what to do. But that's not how she is. She's always been super careful not to come between me and my family, even when they, especially my dad, have been total jerks to her. Side note, Emma had her 16-week appointment yesterday, and everything looks good. We decided not to find out the gender this time. With Kara, we knew she was a girl like 5 months before she was born, and Emma thinks it'll be more fun to be surprised. I'm already stressing about names though, lol. Anyway, I couldn't sleep for like a week trying to figure out what to do. I kept going back and forth. On one hand, he's my dad, and family is supposed to help family. On the other hand, he's been such a jerk to Emma for years and never apologized. Plus, this whole situation is basically Jared's fault for cheating on Rebecca. Why should I bail them out? I decided I needed to see my dad in person rather than just call him. I wanted to see his face when we talked about this. So I drove to the construction company office yesterday afternoon. I hadn't been there for like 8 years. When I got to my dad's office, I was surprised how old he looked since I last saw him at Christmas, which was only like 5 months ago. He actually smiled when he saw me and got up to shake my hand, which was weird because he's never been big on showing happiness to see me specifically. He greeted me all warmly and immediately asked if I'd thought about the opportunity he wanted to discuss. Not even a, "How are you?" or "How's Emma and Kara?" first. Classic dad. I sat down and said I wanted to hear exactly what he was asking for before I made any decisions. He started giving me this whole speech about family legacy and how the business was just facing a temporary cash flow issue because of unexpected investor withdrawal. He never once mentioned Jared or the affair, like the whole thing was just bad luck rather than the direct consequence of my brother thinking with his dick. Finally, he got to the point. He needed a capital injection of $175,000 to complete the current projects and keep the business afloat until new investors could be found. $175,000. I literally laughed. I couldn't help it. I mean, Emma and I are doing well, but we don't have that kind of money just sitting around. We have savings for emergencies and the new baby and Kara's education. I told him straight up we didn't have that kind of money, and even if we did, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting our family's financial security at risk. He looked disappointed and desperate. Then he switched tactics and asked if I would consider coming back to the company instead. Said they needed fresh ideas and my computer skills could help modernize the business. He actually said he was willing to overlook my career choices if I was ready to step up for the family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After years of dismissing my career as a waste of time, now he was acting like me joining the company would be him doing me a favor, like he was forgiving me for having my own life. I told him I wasn't interested in joining the company, and that even if I had the money he needed, I would have trouble giving it to someone who had never shown my wife basic respect. He got defensive and said he'd always been polite to Emma. I almost lost it then. I reminded him about the comments at dinner the first time they met, the things he said about connections and his drunk speech at our wedding. He told me he was just trying to protect me from making a mistake, but it seemed like she'd worked out fine. Worked out fine. Like Emma was some risky choice that happened not to fail. Not an amazing woman who makes me happier than I've ever been. I told him that Emma wasn't just fine. She was the best thing that ever happened to me, and that if he couldn't see that after all these years, then maybe I'd been right to keep my distance. Then he got quiet for a while. When he looked back up, he asked if I would at least talk to Emma about helping with a smaller amount. Said maybe I could loan them $50,000 instead. I told him I'd discuss it with my wife, but not to get his hopes up. As I was leaving, he surprised me by admitting that my brother had made a terrible mistake and that he'd raised him to be better than that. It was the first time I'd ever heard him admit Jared had done anything wrong. I told Emma everything when I got home. I expected her to immediately say no to the smaller loan idea, but she actually suggested we think about it. Said maybe we could help with $25,000 as a one-time thing if my dad agreed to certain conditions. I asked her why she would even consider helping after how he's treated her. She said it was because he's my father, and someday I might regret not helping when I had the chance. That's just so Emma. After everything, she's still thinking about what would be best for me in the long run. We still haven't decided what to do. I'm leaning toward offering a much smaller amount, 10 to 15K maybe, with a formal loan agreement, and the condition that my dad make a real apology to Emma and start treating her with respect. I don't know. Part of me thinks this could be a chance for my dad to finally change, but another part thinks I'm being naive. Would love some perspective from people who've dealt with similar family situations. Edit. A lot of people are asking about Jared's role in all this. I actually texted him after the meeting with Dad and asked if he was contributing any money to help save the business. He sent back some vague BS about how he's contributing in other ways, which I'm pretty sure means no, he's not putting in any money. Typical. Edit 2. To answer several comments, yes, we would 100% get a legally binding loan agreement if we decide to help. I'm not completely naive. And no, I wouldn't touch our emergency fund or Kara's college fund. If we do this, it would come from our house savings, which would just delay our move by a year or so. Edit 3. Someone asked if my mom has reached out. Yes, she called this morning, but I let it go to voicemail. The message was just her asking me to be reasonable and think about your father's legacy. Still no acknowledgement of how he's treated Emma or that this whole situation is because of Jared's affair. Edit 4. For those saying I shouldn't give him a penny, I get it, I really do. But family is complicated. It's easy to say cut them off when it's not your family. If my dad's business fails, it won't just affect him. There are employees who would lose their jobs, including some who've worked there since I was a kid. Edit 5. Emma just reminded me of something I forgot to mention. During one of our conversations this week, she pointed out that my dad has never once asked about her pregnancy. He knows she's pregnant, my mom told him, but hasn't acknowledged it at all. Not even a congratulations or how's she feeling. That pretty much sums up his attitude toward her. Edit 6. Holy crap, I just got off the phone with Jared. Apparently, he told Dad that I agreed to loan the full $50. I never said that. I specifically told Dad I'd think about it and talk to Emma. Now Dad's calling me asking when he can expect the money. This family is unbelievable sometimes.